Good evening. My name is PJ Capozzi, Superintendent of Schools for Meridian CUSD 223. I'm here with Board President John Smith, and our goal is to recap the events of the August board meeting, which just concluded. The events of the evening we had a light agenda, so we'll go through each item as we can to let people know that we're not able to attend what went on. So we generally start off with some procedural work in terms of taking a roll call, doing the Pledge of Allegiance, then we go on to consent agenda. Consent agenda is largely where we spend money and do personnel hiring and firing. There was nothing too controversial in terms of what took place tonight. Major expenses for this month included purchase of around $18,000 worth of curriculum resources for our K-5 English Language Arts teachers and $10,000 to certify our drapes in order to make sure that they are fire resistant and up to code in terms of what we use in our drama areas.
And so total payables for the month were $96,321.78. Again, it was a light month because we're just at the beginning of the startup of the school year, but that number is reported each and every month of what the expenditures for the district were.
Following those reports, it gets into what I share with the board. What I share with the board largely focused on two major reports that were concluded over the course of the summer by the leadership team. The first is a district data report, which is over 250 pages of data from everything you can imagine, from work order time closure for technology to how our students are progressing in terms of fluency in first grade. So a wide gamut of things. This was a big process for us to undertake, and the importance in completing it was not constructing a document, it was actually getting in there and digging into the data. What was shared tonight is that whenever you examine data, our goal is to ask more questions, not necessarily find answers. So that's what we did this year, in digging into the data we were able to pull out some questions that hopefully drive our improvement. Second was this district improvement plan, which includes the work that I'm going to do as superintendent, inclusive of what my evaluation is based on, and then each department or building included their data-based improvement goal that now we've proclaimed publicly and we can be held accountable to see if we're moving in the right direction.
And both of those documents were extremely well received by the board. As a matter of fact, this is the first time that we have ever, as a school board in this district, received that much data in a single document. Again, it was well done, well presented, well put together, and again, it helps us as we evaluate Mr. Capozzi, and as we also continue to evaluate the strategic objectives of the district itself.
We also took the time to recognize two staff members that have gone above and beyond to start the year. First was John Finley, who works in our technology department, who did an unbelievable job of troubleshooting and trying to get teachers the technology they need to serve students on the first few weeks of school. This included working immense amount of hours trying to make sure everything was up and running. And the second is Joe Mullican, who's a high school science teacher who not only teaches our students and does a great job in that, but also does a lot of work in terms of promoting technology, fostering school improvement, and does a wonderful job of continuing to grow himself, whether it be extending himself through social media or teaching at the graduate level, which he does for two local universities.
And also Joe shared with us the number of students that he's having do small little vignettes themselves, if you will. I don't know a good word for it, but he's actually looking at not only taking a video footage of the football team and the basketball team and all of the sports that everyone's used to seeing, but we have still one student that runs cross country, so he's thinking about going and watching that student run, having that student talk about what that sport means to them, and present something like that weekly to all of the students in the high school.
Much like what we're doing right now is that we realize that in effort to be transparent and communicative, we have to reach out to where our stakeholders currently are. And so we do announcements every day at the high school level, and we post them via our Facebook page, but putting something in a more exciting medium and allowing kids to explore their talents, as well as achieve one of our objectives in terms of communicating, is going to be huge. And Joe is just volunteering his time trying to lead that up, and sincerely appreciative of that effort and got him some recognition. Next thing we talked about was our year-to-date spending and our revenue generation. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary to discuss. What we did note is that we are 8.5% through the year, and we've expended more than that percentage of our annual budget, and that's for two reasons. One is that we've expended our total in terms of our insurance policy for liability, and that we paid the front end of our new bus leases. So that inflates the numbers. We anticipate to be in good shape as those numbers level out throughout the course of the year.
Do you want to make a comment about how we anticipate the flow of money coming from the state, and the fact that they are going to be funding education at a rate of 92% to the schools this year versus the 89% that they have for the past 5 years, and how that will flow to the district as well?
Yeah, it's interesting that the state is going to fund us at 92% of their statutorily required amount, and we are happy about that because we've been funded less than that in the past. So in order to try to best understand where we're going, and I explained to the board that our general state aid is based off of our student enrollment, and we will receive that in 2 payments per month. The first 2 payments that we receive in July are not indicative of what we'll receive the rest of the month, because it's just an estimate that the state provides to us as to what they believe our general state aid will be. Our due date to turn in all of our reports that they determine this off of is in June. We will receive the hard number in June. We'll be able to 100% project our revenues for the year at that point.
One little bit of a, not a clarifier, but an additional comment that I would like to make is Mr. Kavotu says that we are paid on our enrollment, but we're really paid on attendance in the buildings. So just because we have 27 kids in a class, if only 25 of them are showing up to that class, that affects our revenue as well. So it's extremely important, and the board talks about it frequently, that attendance, and we're always shooting for 100% attendance levels. We know that we're never going to achieve that with having kids being sick and other things, but that's really the driver that we look for, is an attendance number, not necessarily just an increase in enrollment number.
Correct. The way that we always try to explain it is that one additional student per grade level attending on average per day would fund a teacher for a year. So when we think about it at that level, it really makes, hopefully as a community, urge our kids to attend school on those iffy days instead of giving kids a mental health day. The next thing we talked about was we've always done a traditional beginning of the school report where administrators come in and report on how the year started off. This year I changed that format a little bit because I found the presentations in the past to be somewhat fluffy and lack content. So I had each administrator complete a written report that said what went well at the beginning of the year, what they tried and they would not do in the future, and what they wish they did better. So this way we can have a document in which we can do some planning off of, revisit in April and May, and make our summer plans according.
And one of the things that the board enjoyed about the change in the document is the consistency. So it's the same format from building to building to building, and then that just makes it much easier for us to understand, but then also to drill down and look at what they are doing and how they're starting the school off, how the school year starts off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's one of those things that every year we try to start the school year off better, but there's always going to be hiccups, and it's the more planning we can do, the better, and the more we can alleviate some major headaches and stress that our teachers, our students, and our community feel, the more successful we'll be. So that's our goal as we move forward, is to each year systematically reduce the amount of stress that goes into launching school. In terms of public comment, we had 2 students from Stillman Valley High School come approach the board to advocate for the funding of a dance team. The dance team position in terms of the stipend is something that is still on the books in terms of what we expect to expend this year. We have had a very low interest in terms of the number of students interested in dance, and the decision that we'll make over the next month is whether it's worth funding an entire program for a limited number of interested students. This obviously it's a difficult decision because fiscally we want to be responsible with the money, but we also want as many kids involved as possible to fulfill our mission. So it'll be an interesting dilemma as we move forward.
Yeah. And it's always interesting to have the students come and actually address the board as well. We do it several times a year when the student advisory committee reports to the board, but to have the students come and express their needs and their desires is again a phenomenal process that this board and this community goes through. And the 2 young ladies that came to speak about their dance, you could tell the passion that's something that's very passionate to them, and that they're passionate for, and we hope that we can find someone to help them attain their dance team objective.
And then we could close the night in terms of looking at new business. We had 2 items to discuss. First, we discussed what would it look like if we started school later. There are lots of mixed comments in terms of people that were really excited about starting so early, and then there are people that were equally upset about starting so early. So I wanted to bring to the board's attention that talk was out there, and the board already knew, obviously, being in a small town. And we discussed what it would look like, the pros and the cons. And I wanted to get direction from the board as to whether this was something they wanted me to explore at the teacher, student, and community level. To which they said that they were supportive of that. So this will be a conversation that I imagine will be ongoing for about the next 2 to 3 months until we make a recommendation to the board, hopefully in November or December, as to what the calendar looks like for the 16-17 school year.
Okay.
And lastly, we asked the board for approval to engage in an agreement with PMA as a financial advisor as we proceed through the health, life, safety bonding process. This is something that we've been talking about for months. We will continue to talk about since it's such a complex issue. Health, life, safety is a code that schools have to follow in terms of every 10 years we need to do a survey, which tells us where facilities-wise we're not up to code, and then we are compelled by law to make those fixes. Right now, we have reauthorized and recommissioned a second survey from our architect since our last survey lapsed. So we anticipate this will be several $1 million worth of work. The way that we pay for that is you go through a bonding agency. And so that's the process that we basically started tonight, is saying that we understand this is going to be a big, long, arduous process, that we want to be absolutely perfect, that we're doing everything possible to be fiscally responsible, and to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. And so what we did tonight was enter into a contract with an agency that will help us ensure that we do that. The good news is that if for whatever reason we do not sell the bonds, this is a zero cost agreement with PMA. If we do sell the bonds, they do have a fee that is very nominal, considering the transaction that we anticipate it would take in order to answer the needs of our building to get them simply up to code.
Yeah. And health, life, safety is one of those details that are mandated by the state. So there really is not much wiggle room for us. So we have to continue to stay on top of it. This is new. It is new to this board. So we will work through it. And I know that it's a multi-step process, but I think that we have a target date of being ready by the levy presentations. Is that correct? Yeah,
ideally this impacts everything that we do financially. So we'd like to get everything in place and planned out by the December board meeting, and that would allow us also that if we are going to approve the amendments and issue for the sale of bonds, that we can plan that work out and hopefully get that started for next year. Just as a side note on health, life, safety, additional to this video, there'll be a voiceover presentation that goes into detail for about 7 minutes on health, life, safety and the process, where we've come from and where we're going. If anyone's interested in viewing that, that will be published at the same time or near the same time as this video. That's about all we had for tonight. It was a slim agenda for the board meeting, but there was a lot of substance to get through. So hopefully this was helpful in helping educate people as to what was taking place at the board meeting. Our next board meeting is a large one. It will be at MC. It starts at 6:45 with a budget hearing, and we will proceed from there with our traditional meeting, and we approve the budget for the year. Prior to that normally scheduled board meeting, which I believe is the last Thursday of the month, we will have a finance committee meeting on September 10th.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.